Coming up on this week's Royal Exclusive, we have breaking news on Harry and Meghan. Plus, has Catherine declared war on the anti-monarchists? And is Andrew trying to stage a royal comeback via Beatrice and Eugenie? Welcome to this week's show where I can exclusively reveal the plans for Harry and Meghan's UK return. Yes, you heard that right. And as Catherine's icy stare at anti-monarchy protesters goes viral, we're asking if the Princess of Wales is entering her fierce era. Meanwhile, Andrew's been left out of yet another major royal occasion, but is he quietly plotting a route back into the firm through his daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie? Plus, why is he still demanding that staff use his titles behind closed doors? I'm Bronte Coy, royal reporter for news.com.au, and joining me to unpack it all is Talk TV host Mark Dolan and Daily Beast European editor-at-large Tom Sykes. Well, first up to that breaking news I mentioned, we've heard for some time that Prince Harry will be returning to the UK for events around the one-year countdown to the Birmingham Invictus Games next month. But I can now exclusively reveal that Meghan and their two kids, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, are coming back too. Their team won't confirm anything at the moment, possibly for security reasons. And on that, I want to read this quote to you given by Harry to the BBC after he lost an appeal over his level of protection in the UK last May. Quote, "I can't see a world in which I would bring my wife and children back to the UK at this point." End quote. Tom, something must have changed. What's going on here, and are you surprised?
Well, Bronte, first of all, massive congratulations to you. A huge story, a huge scoop, and well done. It's the story that we've all been waiting on tenterhooks to hear, on tenterhooks to know. And yeah, I think, people's spidey senses have been tingling for a few months now. There's been a lot of signs that Charles was going to enable some form of return for Harry, and indeed the wife and the children. But it is a truly sensational development that they are now coming back, because they just persistently said that they wouldn't come unless they got 24-hour armed automatic security. So the immediate question will be, have they got the security? And the secondary question will be, does this actually mean that they're actually coming back within the enclosure of the royal palaces, within the envelope of the royal palaces, with the blessing of the king?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, there's been a lot of clues along the way, but also we heard late last year that Harry's threat assessment was under review, which is what he'd wanted. So we don't have an outcome on that at the minute, and we don't know the details around what the security would be, but it will be interesting seeing this all unfold, as you say. Mark, it's been 4 years since Meghan and the kids were here, and at one point it really seemed like she'd never come back. So I've spoken to a source close to Meghan who said to me, quote, "She has the thickest of skin," which means that indicating that she's not concerned about any potential negative publicity or reactions by people when she comes here. How do you think she'll be received?
Well, the story is enormous. It's seismic. Congratulations on this scoop, which by an order of magnitude is the biggest royal story of the year. And by the time we get to the end of 2026, we may look back on it as the biggest story, because it's been years since Meghan was here, and of course, since Charles met his grandchildren. So on a personal level, it's massive. The occasion is significant because it's the countdown to Invictus. Now, the countdown to Invictus is a trivial occurrence. I mean, it's something Harry could have jumped on a Zoom and said, "OK, folks, a year to go. Good luck. Let's go for it." Why are they all coming for what is a nothing burger? A clear message that the Sussexes want to be back in the royal fold, part of the family, and also some kind of public-facing royal role as well. I believe it's an act of desperation. Meghan is impervious to shame. So what you're hearing about the fact that she's got a thick skin tallies with everything that I've heard and everything that we've seen about Meghan Markle. She's a very driven person. The business enterprises are struggling. The broadcast career has more or less collapsed. Netflix aren't looking at any of their projects in any serious sort of commitment. So therefore, the money's running out. They want to recalibrate their royal credentials. And this is a huge moment for the Sussex brand.
Well, that's it. With As Ever, do you think this could be a promotional tool for her then, coming over here? She's very divisive, though. Well,
I think she's fighting a losing battle with As Ever. Don't forget that Netflix ended their commercial partnership with Meghan to sell the runny spread. It's not even jam, is it? We've got to be accurate about that. And she's in a pickle across the board, really. But no, I think that it demonstrates that both Harry and Meghan need to be part of the royal family again. They need the optics, they need the titles, they need the status, they need the elevated position it gives them. Because at the moment, we've seen that Meghan's popularity is dropping in the United States. So it's a great moment for them and a terrible blow for Team Wales. Prince William will be furious.
Well, on the point about the family, of course, this is a huge element of the Sussexes coming over. So I was told by my source that it's been a, quote, real point of great sadness for Harry that he's been unable to bring his wife and kids back to the UK safely to reconnect with friends and family. And he would love to introduce the children to his wider family to show them where he grew up. End quote. Tom. It's the first time, as I said, we've had the full Sussex family here since 2022. Now, things clearly are not good between Harry and Meghan and William and Catherine. But Archie and Lilibet are the cousins of Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis. Do you think there's any chance that the tensions will be put aside and the kids could all get together?
No. I think will be seen. I think that comment will be seen for what it is, which is an unbelievably self-serving remark to say that, to imply that, there's a tremendous sadness that's just been visited on them, as if they didn't completely cause it themselves by giving interviews to Oprah Winfrey saying that their family was racist, that they were cold, that they were heartless, that they wouldn't, in his book, that they wouldn't even lend you a dab of lip gloss, that they made you cry, they lied about it, that they sold you out to the newspapers, that they sacrificed you on your PR altar, that your father was a sort of pathetic, weak figure who walked around dragging his teddy bear with him. I mean, the idea that this is some random cause of sadness to them is such a manipulation of what the sequence of what actually happened. And I mean, I've been told very frankly by friends of William and Catherine that they absolutely loathe them. They completely blame Meghan for what has happened. And, we can see there's so much evidence of how close Harry and William were. Don't forget, before Megxit, Harry was giving interviews to The Telegraph, to Bryony Gordon, saying, my brother saved my life. My brother was the one who got me into therapy. He was saying, Harry, this isn't normal, mate. You've got to get yourself together. Thank you so much, William. And suddenly the whole thing turns around 6 months later and they've denied even the access to therapy because it's going to be embarrassing or shameful and they're being sacrificed. I mean, there's a part in Spare where Harry actually says, maybe they only had me to be a spare body part for William. I mean, it's
amazing.
Absolutely insane what he wrote in that, and to just expect that everybody's just going to overlook it.
Do you mean what Meghan wrote for him in Spare? I think she had a hand in some of those chapters. Of course, that cannot be proven.
That's very
legally.
Allegedly over there.
Let's just say a hint of ghostwriting going on. If Harry did write the book Spare, then clearly a lot of the thought process was guided by Meghan, because I think what she's done is that she's inculcated in him a victim mentality. I think that's how she got him out of the UK and out of the royal fold, is to tell him, to get in his head, these are terrible people and you're better than this.
It's fascinating to have seen it all unfold, because obviously we don't know exactly what that dynamic is. And Harry himself has denied that Meghan was the driving force behind this. But as you say, there were interviews then previously which sort of go against what he said post-Megxit, as it were. So it's been... And you know what? Speaking of fascinating ways that it's all unfolding, it is almost impossible to fathom 6 years ago this happening, them coming over at summer with the whole family, being very excited about it.
But Bronte, what you're reporting effectively is the undoing of Brexit. You are basically... Megxit, sorry. You're reporting the undoing of Megxit, the undoing of the Sandringham Summit, right? The undoing of the agreement that followed that in 2021, where they had to agree to be half in and half out. Like, if you look, when they went on their Australia trip, they very openly told journalists who were travelling with them, we are now half in and half out. This is what we're going to do. We're going to do a charity event, and at the same time, we're going to put the clothes on an affiliate shopping link, and we don't care, and you can't stop us. And then, within days after that, Harry's popping up in Ukraine, saying comments that are absolutely a replica of what Charles is saying 5 days later. In the joint session of the House of Congress, Charles put it in a much more diplomatic and I think really wonderful kind of way. Charles wants him back in the institution. Charles wants them to shake hands. Charles has got this new Deputy Private Secretary, Theo Rycroft, who's very much a peacemaker, also a friend of William's, I am told, thinks the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous and that Harry and William need to shake hands. It's so damaging for the monarchy, blah, blah, blah. And that is one way to look at it. But I think that the British people are not going to wear this well at all.
No, I mean, I think it's a catastrophe. It's a huge story, and I congratulate you on the scoop, but it's a dark day for the I mean, set aside the political turmoil.
I'm going to do the Tom Cruise thing, where he gets on the...
You've got to do it. You've also... We've got a political quagmire going on, potentially a new Prime Minister by the autumn. But this is a big moment for the royal family, and it's a bad moment. It's a dangerous moment. It's an existential moment, because with Harry and Meghan coming back into the royal fold, as you say, with the subtle blessing of the king, we have more material for Spare 2. This time it's personal, the follow-up book. More material for the second season of the Harry and Meghan documentary on Netflix. More material for Meghan's forthcoming memoir, Meghan, My Story. They are feeding the monster.
It's such an interesting point because, look, as we've learned and exactly from your recap, you really can't rule anything out when it comes to what's been happening with the royal family, particularly over the last decade. But this era that you've mentioned about the Netflix interviews and the memoir and these explosive interviews, is this trip, though, a signal that is very much a thing of the past and they've moved into their, I don't know, quasi-royal era? Or do you think that there is the possibility that there's more of this coming down the line?
Well, as Tom has said, this will be half in, half out, which was expressly against what the Queen wanted. Queen Elizabeth was a very wise woman. She was a stateswoman. And she knew that this wasn't going to fly. It was just diplomatically and emotionally impossible to do that. And it's so egregious that, in particular, that interview, the deranged interview that Harry gave to ITV News in Ukraine, dressed as a burglar, in a beanie hat, like a criminal. I don't know what's going on with his style. But Harry's there in an unhinged performance saying, I'm very much a member of the royal family, very much a frontline royal. I'll be doing these royal trips. That is such an insult to the memory of the Queen. That is, as you said, it's reverse Megxit. It is tearing up a deal that he made with the Queen, who's no longer here to enforce that. The reason why he's able to do this now is because King Charles is a good man and a decent man, but irredeemably weak. He has a soft spot for his youngest son, always has done, never said no to him, always been harder on William, which is so unfair. If anyone's the victim, it's William, not Harry. And he wants to meet his grandkids. All of that has been leveraged by the Sussexes. And I think it's bad news for the monarchy and bad news for Britain.
But as you say, look, if the king has decided that a priority for him is meeting his grandchildren, potentially that is a driving force here. If they have, I mean, as you say, presumably he's across this and has given approval or wants to meet up with Harry because, of course, this reconciliation has been underway for some time and Harry's not
Clarence
going to do
House
anything.
last year is when it started.
Well, Harry's not going to do anything to ruin that at this point.
And what does he do after Clarence House? He runs to Ukraine again. He loves dangerous places, by the way, apart from London. Yeah, he's very safe in war zones, but not in Mayfair. Make it make sense. And Meghan, by the way, can go to Paris, which has got loads of societal chaos going on as well, but not safe in London. But just to, really look at the implications of this, I think it is a huge problem because how much alleged racism is Meghan going to be exposed to this time round? Is someone going to make a remark that would be considered, here we go again, the pantomime continues?
And I also do want to be, before we move on, which, this is such an interesting topic because, as you say, there is so much in it. We don't know the implications when they arrive and how this will all unfold, but we will find out soon. But you mentioned William. We're talking about William, and I think he's such a key figure in this. Because, as you said, and multiple reports have said that William.
Well, I've done loads of reporting about this on my Substack.
Yes.
Now, it's a story that, for complicated reasons, a lot of the legacy media is nervous about talking about the conflict between the courts. But there is tremendous conflict between William and Charles. It's no secret that it goes back to William's childhood, a very traumatic divorce from his mother. William was very close to his mother. Diana used to confide in him and sob on his shoulder. As we know, William used to say to her, "Don't worry, Mummy, I'll get the HRH back for you." This has all been airbrushed, and not necessarily deliberately, but it's just, as time goes, airbrush might be the wrong word, but it's been subsumed into the larger picture of the monarchy. And William is a really good company man, right? He respects the fact that the royal family is ultimately a military organisation, and that you follow orders and you ask questions later. And so William has gone along with it also from the point of view that he is going to be the head of this institution in one day. He needs the institution to be strong. So he's bitten his tongue. But I mean, it was on display as recently as this weekend. I'm told after trooping the colour, the whole of the rest of the family went for lunch. And I'm told William and Catherine just took off immediately, straight afterwards, because they feel very, very differently to Charles. And William, you see, he is the disciple of Queen Elizabeth. Right, he when he was at Eton, and I know we're going to talk about George going there later. When he was at Eton, he used to go over the bridge every Sunday and have tea and king lessons with the Queen. He was much closer to the Queen and much more psychically inspired by the Queen than he was by his father, who was very distant, who was very preoccupied with his own schemes to, get Camilla to be Queen Camilla, which, congratulations to him, he pulled off. But there is a huge divide. I mean, even last year when I started reporting about this on my Substack, The Royalist, Tina Brown then picked up on it and wrote a story about it. And then some mainstream media started writing about it. And instantly this story appeared in the newspapers saying that actually William and Charles were really close and they were going to Balmoral for this brainstorming weekend to decide about the future of the monarchy. I mean, I was told within 5 minutes by two different sources that was a million miles from the truth, that William had gone up shooting with his mates, that he was at Balmoral, that Charles was 7 miles away at his own house. And it's just complete nonsense to pretend that there's not a cigarette paper between Charles and William. It's just complete rubbish. And this is the absolute proof of it. What you're reporting today, the fact that Charles is happy to have Harry and Meghan and the children come back to the UK, it will absolutely, I mean, I think it explains what was going on Saturday.
But that's so interesting, the context of it as well, when you look back through. But it's, with a decision like this, it's always reported that, as you say, that there is not a cigarette paper between William and the King. But it does appear that there are many reports that he is consulted on big decisions. Is your suggestion that you think he's not been a part of this process at all?
I think that what I will say about William is that he respects his father's rank. I'm always told that, and that he follows orders, and that is the massive difference between him and Harry. Harry could never accept that it was a hierarchical structure and that you have to do what your superior
Harry
officer
more
tells
of a
you to
rebel
do.
than his brother, more like his mother Diana.
Oh, yeah, and
Harry more like Diana. Oh, and like his father.
Much more like his father. Very emotional, very kind of impatient, I want to get this done. William, much more trusting in the process, much more patient, much more, let's not let people know too much about our lives, let's keep a veneer, all of that. So Charles is emotionally much closer to Harry, the darling boy.
Tom Bower's book about King Charles is called Rebel King.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Just lastly, before we will move on, is... I've mentioned the kids will be coming, is what I'm told. How much do you think we'll see of them in public? Because obviously we've not really seen much of them at all, up until quite recently on Meghan's Instagram, where we've seen a little bit more. But for the first few years of both of their lives, really, but particularly Lilibet, having been born in the US.
Well, I think we know now why their faces haven't been revealed, right, Bronte? Because this is going to be the big unveiling, isn't it?
Well, so there it is. You think we're going to have them out on display?
Because Fleet Street don't have that many heart emojis that they can put on their faces as they come off the plane at Heathrow. The whole thing is completely wild. And by the way, the big headache before we move on is that, as I said earlier, you're feeding the monster of the Sussexes. This was a dying brand. And they were quietly slipping away into irrelevance. This is a tremendous boon for Meghan.
But Mark, imagine if we didn't mention that they were coming and they just showed up,
and that's the thing.
Surprised everyone on the street.
That might be the best thing, but just briefly to say two things, which is that what it does is it boosts the idea of a rival court based in Montecito, and it's now going to be enhanced, elevated with these royal connections brought into the fold. Suddenly, more deals will come in from the United States, broadcasters interested again, publishers interested again. And then the other issue is that they're very much building the kids as the kind of future royal brand, big valuable IP in that one.
Can I ask you, Bronte,
yes.
in your reporting of this story, what's the impression that you get about their motivation to be coming? I mean, obviously, they are trying to emphasise that it's just family, that it's family. what's your sort of sense of what's going on behind the scenes?
Well, look, as you said, what I'm being told repeatedly is family, family. As someone who, I understand that, we've all got families. I think that certainly would be an element of it. It's been a very ugly few years for the royal relationships in that way. With that said, we've talked about on the show a few times, I was in Australia with the couple in April covering that trip. And there's clearly a shift. As you said, I was told afterwards by someone close to them that they would press on unapologetically with this style of thing. I think the reason it's happening now is we are absolutely in a new chapter of the Sussexes, this is the model by which they want to push forward. And I think they road tested it earlier this year. I think they've road tested it in a few other small ways, but Australia was the big one. And I think this is now the real deal.
Well, it's great, but guys, be very afraid, because Australia was a hot mess and a public relations dumpster fire. So, strap yourselves in. We're going to have years of this. Tom, you're going to have to give up all holidays.
But this is going to be absolutely mental, right? Because if you think about it, what this implies is that they have got the Ravec coverage, OK? Because they have always said a precondition for coming back is that we have to have the automatic Ravec coverage, or we are not coming back. So if they've got it, that means that somebody has pulled strings to enable them to have it, and they can come back now whenever they want.
I have no details on that whatsoever. So this is all very much out. But of course, with the things that Harry said in the past, of course, that makes sense.
They've backed themselves into such a corner about it, Bronte. They've said over and over again, we are not coming back. It's not safe. I could be a victim. My wife could be a victim of an acid attack or a knife attack. It's like, guys,
whatever. I know. It's so mad.
It's kind of wild to move from acid attack and knife attack into the next topic, but I'm going to try to do it seamlessly. The British summer season. It's my favourite time of year. What I love about this current period is we've got all of the major royal events. Royal Ascot is underway at the moment. We had the Order of the Garter ceremony earlier this week, Trooping the Colour on the weekend, as you mentioned, a little bit of potential hostility behind the scenes, but also potentially a little bit of hostility out on the street. I loved watching the Trooping the Colour parade with the kids and Catherine in the carriage. But this moment that's gone viral, which it's a side of the Princess of Wales I don't think we've ever seen, when the Republic protesters were there and she's gone past with the children and they were booing. And the kids obviously were looking a bit confused in this footage, and it would be a bit obviously very confronting for small children. And the look she gives them, as someone captioned it, if looks could kill. We've not seen this from Catherine before, but I feel like she's just taking no prisoners at the moment. What do you think? What did you make of the footage?
Yeah, I thought good on her, frankly. I thought good for you. If people are going to be that, if you want to protest about not having a monarchy, knock yourself out. It's a free country. That's the whole point of the monarchy, is that you can protest against it, right? That's the whole point of the country that we live in. But if you're going to boo children, you're just an idiot, and just get out.
Well, as a parent, it did make me feel uncomfortable, because I agree with you. We're used to seeing Republic out at royal events, particularly after the death of the late Queen. But it was with the children's reactions to it. It was almost you could see that it almost sparked that maternal rage in Catherine. But something that struck me as well watching this footage, Mark, is that Catherine's always had this quality that sort of reminds me of the late Queen, in that she's from a very young age been sort of wrapped up in the royal adjacent prior to her marriage to William. So we never knew much about her before then. And then she's obviously been dating William for a long time and then married him. So we don't ever really see very emotional expressions from her. She's very careful with all of that, with her public displays. But this was, as I say, this was a rare moment of sort of seeing her real reaction to something. Do you think it was very deliberately chosen?
I think so. Well, first, she's a human being, but I do think she's quite a stoic character. Let's not forget that when she split from from William, when he was obviously, Prince William, one of the most famous young men in the world, most eligible bachelor in the world, they had a bit of a split. She managed to absorb all of that press attention. And actually, she was in love with William. She found the temporary split, painful, but she said that's life. And then they got back together again. So I think she's quite a strong person. She's very protective of her kids. It was, yes, you should say that stare was up there with Paddington's angry stare, wasn't it? Very protective. And I think it's interesting, is going back to our earlier story, I think if it's going to be a face-off between Meghan and Catherine, because we talked about the rivalry between William and Harry, well, forget about that, because the main event is Catherine and Meghan. And I think Catherine is well up for the fight.
Do you think that we've underestimated Catherine in the past?
I think people did underestimate her. I don't think they do anymore. I think that people, especially after what she came through with the cancer diagnosis and the kind of grace with which she dealt with that and which she dealt with all that speculation that happened at the time, I think that the days of underestimating Catherine are long gone, and I'm sure Meghan doesn't underestimate her.
And also, the other great thing about her, we mentioned, your insider said that Meghan has a thick skin,
yes.
which she does, because Thomas Markle Jr., her brother, said it's more than that. She loves to be attacked because it's all noise. But with Catherine has got a thick skin too, because there were expectations that she should reveal more about what was going on with her cancer. She actually did it on her terms, recorded that video, issued statements. She chose the timeline. Others thought, isn't it time to get back to work now? We've not seen Catherine for a long time, but she stuck to her guns and she decided that she was going to own that cancer journey.
You're absolutely right. And interestingly then, she's always been popular, but I think her return from there, and it was a gradual return on her own timeline, but she has been never more popular and never more of an asset to the royal family. That Italian trip, particularly recently, was, a huge success for her. But going to some other breaking news, and still on the Waleses, we've found out
More breaking news. I can't cope.
Well, we know where, back on the couch, jump up and down. We know where Prince George will be going to school. He's going to go to Eton, following in the footsteps of his father and Prince Harry. So he'll be starting in September, of course. Now, many prime ministers and celebrities have gone to Eton, and our very own Tom Sykes.
Yes.
So you can tell us...
Well, he must be very intelligent, because when I went to Eton, basically you went and met the headmaster, and the headmaster said, "Hello, your grandfather went here, didn't he?" And you said, "Yes, you did, sir." And then he said, "Play cricket?" "Yes, I did, sir." And I said, "Batsman or bowler?" "Batsman, sir, number 4.
So did you have a good experience there? What can George expect from
Well, I was
Eton?
actually expelled, Bronte.
So not a great experience.
That's a badge of honour.
Yeah, well, and actually it's funny because, it's fair to say I left with mixed emotions to the place, but as time's gone on, I've realised how incredibly privileged I was to have that education. George will love it. It's really hard to get into now. It's a really academic school, so he must be really clever. And I'm told that no quarter is given for any celebrity or any member of the royal family, or anything, because it just wouldn't be fair on them. They just wouldn't have a nice time.
How did Harry get in there for?
Well, you didn't in those days.
I see.
That was in the old
They've
regime.
tightened up the rules.
Why do you
in the old
think-
regime, Mark.
And they were just letting anyone in. I'm joking. Why do you think they... I mean, there were reports they were looking at other schools. That may have just been a red herring. But why do you think they chose Eton specifically for George?
Well, the slightly odd thing about Eton is that whilst it's obviously an incredibly rarefied environment, it is actually located within a town. So there are things like shops, for example, around the place that you can go to. There is also a bar at Eton for the students that you're allowed to go to once you're over 16. But because there are shops and there's Eton High Street and Windsor, and so in a way, although it's a completely rarefied, it is actually a kind of experience of the real world. It's an ersatz real world, but there is something of the real world. And I think also, obviously, from a security point of view, there's so many VIP kids going there already that it's probably fairly easy to add one more into the park.
And I think he'll be boarding most likely.
Yeah.
And is it exclusively
That's 100%,
boarding?
yeah.
100%. So, and I think that provides continuity for him. You see military families that have their kids at boarding school so that there isn't disruption. And I think that it's an extraordinary thing to be the next king but one. And I think that the continuity of a boarding setting is great for him. Plus, as you mentioned, safety. And I think he'll have a very happy time there.
I think it's brilliant.
And
it's brilliant.
It's close to the family home in Windsor as well, or closer than some of the
And
other...
this wouldn't
you
have
can
happened.
walk.
This wouldn't have happened without Catherine's blessing. Obviously, she's his mother. And what is her big focus, which is shared by William? As normal a childhood as possible. It's so ironic that they've managed, Charlotte, Louis, and George, to give them relatively normal lives. Unlike the Sussexes, who have actually publicised their kids to a far greater extent, turning them into these mystical celebrities. But I think they've done a great job with their 3, William and Catherine.
We only see them very rarely, even though they're very high-profile occasions.
You just get the official portraits on the birthday, that's about it.
And they're left alone. They have their summer holidays. They have all...
What do we hear about them? We hear nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. We will move on now to Tom, a very intriguing piece from you, actually, speaking of your Substack from earlier. So Andrew, you've written, played a bit of a role of a puppet master when it came to his daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie's attendance at Peter Phillips's wedding recently. Now, of course, a lot of the senior royals were there in attendance, along with Beatrice and Eugenie. There'd been a lot of discussion about whether they would go, obviously, off the back of the Epstein scandals involving their parents. Now, They have been laying low, but you've written that Andrew had he was choreographing this entrance into the wedding. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was so weird because about a week before, I started to hear from people who knew them that they were really thinking twice about whether to go, and indeed whether they would go to Ascot this week. Now, we don't know, but I'm told that they're going to go tomorrow. But and then it emerged that actually Andrew was basically emailed them and said to them, you've got to go, you've got to represent the family name, we're the Yorks, you know, blah, 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 blah. And then this extraordinary thing happened at the wedding, which was that everybody else got dropped off at the church door. They got dropped off at a house in the village owned by a friend of Peter and Harriet's and walked, the sort of gruesome foursome, walked down the street to the church so they could be photographed the whole time. And I don't know, you'll probably remember it, but there's this horrendous photograph of Eugenie hugging Mia Tyndall and looking at the camera to check whether she's being photographed. And it's just, you know, this was it. It was like a very choreographed big return. And Andrew apparently ranting and raving in Marsh Farm, saying that his staff still have to call him Sir and Duke of York, and that he will continue until the last drop of royal blood is sucked from his veins.
It's a very visual statement, isn't it? I do want to talk about the titles thing in just a moment, but before we get onto that, what I find fascinating about this is there's a lot of conflicting reports about the state of the relationship between the princesses and their parents, but particularly Andrew. You know, it was very widely reported last year that Eugenie in particular was not speaking to her father. So this sort of flips that on its head, because if they're taking advice to this level from him, it would indicate that they have a closer relationship still to this day than what we'd previously been told. Is that your understanding?
Well, I think to be fair, I think the relationship is much closer with Beatrice. And we saw Beatrice, of course, going down and taking the kid on the pony ride, you know, before the full defenestration happened. Eugenie lives in Portugal. She's done a lot more prior to this to separate herself from the family. Eugenie, I get the sense, is much more wants to project herself as, like, you know, pregnant Earth Mother, blah, 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 blah. That's much more her vibe. But Beatrice, you know, everybody's seeing her out and about, best foot forward, you know, boom, we're back. So it's the hot princess summer.
There's some noise around Beatrice's marriage and whether or not that she's gone a little cool on her husband. We don't have too much more on that, but it's one to watch. And I think that here we go, you know, all the wrong-uns of the royal family are coming back to the fore. I don't think there should be a place for Beatrice and Eugenie in the frontline royal setting. I think it's a really awkward thing, given what their parents have been up to.
Or if there is, Mark, maybe in like 3 years' time. Right, when everything's fine.
Things are still happening.
Exactly
we are still
right.
getting new reports.
And of course, the girls are guilty of no crime. I get it.
Yes, and also Andrew, it's important.
But this is the royal family.
Crucially as well, of course, Andrew has denied all allegations
Correct.
of wrongdoing against him, which we must say. But it's the scandal itself. It's reputationally, as you say, when the daughters step out, of course, that brings the whole story up every time and rehashes those headlines. As you say, it's potentially just leaving a bit of breathing space. But speaking of Andrew again specifically, it was such an extraordinary moment last year when the King released that statement, stripping him of his titles and honours and saying he was going to leave Royal Lodge. But, Tom, you've reported that it's been reported that Andrew's still insisting that his staff address him by his royal titles, despite all of that, because he is technically still the Duke of York. Mark, even though he can't use this publicly, does it need to be legally abolished to just draw that line in the sand?
Yes, I think so. I would like to see that final lever pulled, but it won't change Andrew's mentality, which is he feels that he's born to this, it's his birthright. Allegations, as we've heard, that, you know, he's still insists on being called HRH, all the rest of it. So the guy is consumed with hubris. That's actually at the heart of all of his problems. So you can do what you like with the law. He's still going to be deluded.
And we only get little nuggets of information and reports from Andrew's quite isolated new life in Sandringham. Tom, what did this story tell you about his current state of mind?
I think that it's the defiance, isn't it? And it's the entitlement, and it's the kind of, you know, we saw this awful picture of him with this bruise down one side of his cheek. I mean, I don't know about you. I don't know how many black eyes you've had in the last 4 years, but I've had zero.
I've had zero.
Andrew's
just on the record.
There's a few people, there's a few contenders for that black eye.
Right.
Yes, as I say, we got that picture, and then you do get these little bits of information, like him, reportedly asking staff to call him by these titles, and it paints a picture of a man that maybe is a little bit out of touch with reality, of his own reality at the moment.
I think absolutely. I mean, I think the reality is with Andrew, the situation is basically we're all in a holding pattern. We've got to wait until the police either charge him or do what I suspect they will do and go, oh, unfortunately, there's not quite enough evidence. This is all going to just gently slip away. And then we'll be able to find out what he's actually going to do. And I suspect he will opt for an external exile, because at the moment he's in an internal exile, which is a hideous, hideous thing to be, because you are so controlled and you're so monitored. I mean, ultimately, once the police investigation is over, I think he'll be gone. But
it's very interesting, because we think of him as very weak and isolated, and as you say, sort of a captive on the Sandringham estate. But actually, he's got leverage because he remains the king's younger brother. So it doesn't matter how many acts of parliament you have, he'll always be a member of the royal family. They've got great genes. We could be looking at 2-3 decades of Andrew causing trouble or threatening to.
Well, funny enough, I had lunch with Andrew Lowney yesterday, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying, but he was saying to me that actually Andrew has this other incredible leverage, which is all the Epstein stuff. Right? He hasn't spoken about it. Also, where's Fergie? I mean, the idea at this stage...
She has to resurface properly at some point, you would assume. We've had little bits, but it's...
She's writing a book, right? Isn't she? I mean, there's no other explanation.
Watch this space.
For
and it wouldn't be the usual puff piece. It could contain some serious zingers.
Because there's not really anything left for her to do after being dropped from...
She has no one to protect, and she knows where the bodies are buried. Yikes.
Ooh, that's what a note to move on to a much lighter topic. Knows where the bodies are buried. On to our quickfire questions. It's going to lighten it right up to finish up the show. But we'll stay with the Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor issue for a moment, because, as we've just said, he's apparently still going by his old titles. But if he does insist on having one, what would be a more fitting title for him, Mark?
His Royal Lowness. HRL. Because he loves a title, that man.
I think he should keep the HRH, but he should be required to paint it on his forehead every morning with mascara.
That's a great idea.
Both very viable options. So next up, it's been reported recently that Meghan faces losing millions in unsold jam. What should she change the name of her company as ever to? Tom, you go first.
I'm thinking Duchess Originals.
Oh, that's quite nice.
Yeah.
Just go for one flagship jam product, Gooseberry Fool. That one will sell.
Very punchy today, guys. Finally, Queen Camilla has reportedly become close friends with Jerry Halliwell, a.k.a. Ginger Spice, as everyone should know. What should Camilla's Spice Girl name be?
Well, I know she's given up smoking, so she can't be Smoky Spice. So I think she's got to be Royal Spice.
Royal Spice is nice. How about Very Posh Spice?
Oh, very good. Guys, brilliant answers. And this has been such an interesting chat. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Bronte. Congratulations.
That's all we have time for on this week's Royal Exclusive. Thanks to my guests, Mark and Tom, and thanks to you for watching. And as always, remember to comment as well as subscribe to us here on our Royal Exclusive YouTube channel for the latest royal news. See you next week.